Thank you for tuning in to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. Whether you're listening during your commute, while working out, or just relaxing at home, we appreciate you. Every download, every listen, and every subscription means a lot. Up next, the 12 Kyle podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. And thank you for subscribing to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I am your boy, 12 Kyle. I want to thank you all for tuning in as you do each and every week. Man, check this out. On this episode, what I want to talk about is quitting. I was having this conversation with a couple of friends the other day, and the subject of quitting came to the discussion. And it got me to thinking, and I asked myself, and a question I want to throw to you: when's the last time you actually quit on something? Now, there's a difference between quitting and walking away, and I'll talk about that a little bit later in the episode. But when I thought about it, I can't think of the last time that I actually quit something. And the reason being is because there was a lesson that was taught to me by my dad when I was probably about 10 years old. And what's interesting is probably the next time that I talk to him, which will probably be at the time of this recording later today, I'm going to ask him if he remembers this. And I'm sure he does. But I was 10 years old and I was playing Little League football. And what was great about being 10 years old and playing Little League football is that my coach was my dad. And my dad was a really good coach. And he's still coaching me through life, even at the tender age of 79 that he is right now at the time of this recording. But here's the thing. Even in coaching me, because I was his player and his son, he told me initially, like, hey, I'm gonna be on you. Like, I'm gonna be harder on you than I am any of the other players, because you're my son, and people are gonna be looking to see if I'm playing any type of favoritism. And I didn't understand it at the time, but there were days where I tried to take it kind of easy at practice, and my dad was on my case. He was on my bumper. He was on my neck about like hustling and not loafing. Loafing means taking it easy or dogging it in practice, for those of you who didn't play sports. So he would be on my case a lot. And it would be frustrating as it would be for any 10-year-old, because here's the thing. At that particular time, I was probably, if not the best player, probably the second best player on the team. No, I take that back. At 10, I was the best player on the team, right? And so I was a kid who not only was the best player, but I had the most talent, and I had a desire to win. I had a desire to win every single game, every game that we played. Unfortunately, we weren't on a good football team at that particular time that year. And I distinctly remember telling my dad, like, we were maybe 4 or 5 games into the season, and I was disgusted because we were losing games. And I'll never forget, we came in for halftime and we were down like 25-0. We hadn't scored anything. I caught a couple of passes. I was playing receiver and cornerback. I caught a couple of passes. I had an interception. I was doing my thing, right? And I was doing everything that I could to help the team. Now, I was never a selfish player, but at 10 years old, I wanted to do any and everything I could to help my team win. And I'll never forget, we went into our little huddle. I can't even call it a locker room. It's this little room where we got together and the coaches were talking to us. And while my dad wasn't my head coach, he was one of the assistant coaches. Everybody gathered and they were getting ready to talk. And I heard 2 of my teammates talking. And again, we're losing 25-0. The team that we're playing against is the best team in the Little League that we were in. And I distinctly remember hearing one of my teammates say, "Hey man, what are you doing after the game?" And the other kid said, "Hey, we're going hunting, and I can't wait. I'm so looking forward to it. I can't wait to go hunting with my dad and my uncle." And they were just going on and on about going hunting after the game. And they were so excited and they were happy and they were laughing and they were giggling. Now, I'll be honest, they weren't playing. so it wasn't like they were going to be tired when they got to wherever they were going after the game. But I said that to say this. They were excited about the fact that, they were doing something after the game, and the fact that we were losing 25-0 didn't bother them. They were okay with it. And that burned me. That made me even more upset than being down 25-0. I think we ended up losing the game 40-0, right? And I had a crazy game. I had, great statistics, but we lost, right? So I'm so frustrated. And we go home. I didn't really say much after the game. Talked to my dad. My dad and I, we would always talk after and my parents were still together at this point. They didn't get divorced until I got to the 7th grade. And so I'll never forget the Monday after that game. We were outside or something. And I remember my dad came outside and he was talking to me, and I said, "Dad, I want to quit." And he was like, "Quit what?" I was like, "I want to quit the football team." And he was like, "Why do you want to quit the football team?" And I said, "Because I'm tired of playing with these guys. I don't want to play anymore." I didn't tell him the real truth. The real truth was I was tired of losing, because I'm not a loser. And I never wanted to accept losing or mediocrity, because that was never in my DNA. Right. I never lost at anything. And I'm 10 years old. So it wasn't like I'd been through a lot. But I mean, I got great grades in school. I was a really good athlete at the time. I was one of the best athletes in my neighborhood in the projects. So I was liked by a lot of people. I had a couple of little girlfriends at 10 for whatever. And so, no, good things happened to me. I went to a good church. I sang in the choir. I was a good kid, and like all of these good things were supposed to happen to me. And I didn't like the fact that football wasn't working. And what was interesting was this wasn't my first. I played football for this is like my second, almost third year of football. I started playing organized football when I was 8 years old, right? And so I'm like, I don't want to do this. But again, being 10, I couldn't tell them the real reason. I was tired of playing with these losers. It's really not fair for me to call them losers. We lost a lot of games, but my teammates, at least some of them, didn't have the level of dedication that I had for the game or the love for the game. I've said it before on this podcast a gazillion times. My first love was football. I never loved anything before I loved football. I didn't like girls before football. I didn't like music before I loved football. I loved football before I loved anything else. It's my first love. And so there's always been a level of dedication toward that. And again, I wanted to win. And so my dad got some type of clarification in my statement. I said, "Well, I don't want to play anymore." And he said to me, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, if you don't want to play, that's fine. But you're not going to quit right now, not in the middle of the season." He said, "If you want to stop playing when the season ends, then you can do that, but you can't leave the game right now." And I said, "Well, why not?" And he said, "Because you made a commitment to this team, and you're going to see that commitment through the end of this season." He said, "Now, if you want to quit at the end of the season, you can, but you can't quit now, because everybody on this team is depending upon you to play and give it your best. And we don't quit at anything." And I said, "Well, I want to quit now." And he said, "Son, if you quit now, you will quit things for the rest of your life. You don't understand what I'm telling you, but understand this. It'll make more sense later on in life. But if you quit now, you will quit any and everything going forward. And it'll be easier and easier each time you quit something." And I didn't understand it. And so I said, "Well, I still want to quit." And he said, "Well, I'll tell you what, you can quit, but if you quit," he said, "if you really want to quit," he said, "you go upstairs and you get ready to get the Worst spanking you've ever gotten in your life. And he said, after that, I'm still not even sure if I will let you quit. He's like, but you can quit at the end of the season. And so I'm just sitting there thinking like, wait a minute, man. You just told me, you gave me options so I can quit. But now you're telling me I got to get a spanking just because I'm quitting football? I'm like, man, if you don't go to hell, at least that's what I'm saying to myself. I'm not never disrespecting my father, but that's what I'm saying in my head. Like, dude, you tripping. You just told me I could quit. Now you're telling me I can't quit. And all of this stuff about quitting the rest of my life, that was BS to me. I mean, like, again, I'm 10. I don't understand. But what he meant was he was preventing me from quitting something. And he made a lot of sense because, one, I made a commitment to play football. Albeit it wasn't a huge financial agreement, but there was an agreement and a commitment financially for me to play football. Let's just say they spent, I don't know, $40 on my equipment and registration and all of that stuff. And $40 is a lot. So that was a lot in 1982. So, I mean, I get it. But at the same time, again, he's like, you have committed to playing football, at least for this year. And so you're going to play. And I didn't like it. Now, I was never going to go upstairs and take that spanking that he offered because why? But at the end of the day, the lesson that he taught me was you don't quit. Like, particularly when you are committed to something, you stick it all the way through. And if you get to a point where you have to walk away, that's one thing, but you give yourself a chance. And then at the end of the day, once you've given yourself a chance, you can actually look yourself in the mirror and you can say, well, look, I tried, and now I'm giving up. And in my opinion, giving up and quitting are two different things, because some people get to a point where they've exhausted all of what they can offer and they have to walk away. And that's understandable. Some of you may be at a job and you've given that job all that you're going to give it. And you really have to make that decision to walk away from that job. Maybe it's for your health. Maybe it's for your mental health. Maybe it's for your pockets, but you have to walk away. That's different. I don't even think that's quitting. That's walking away, because walking away and quitting are two different things. Now, if you just quit the job, that's something totally different, because now you're quitting, and some people quit jobs without having other jobs to go to, which to me doesn't make a lot of sense, particularly if you don't have any money. But I've seen it happen. I've never done it, but I've seen it happen. But you get to a point where if you feel like you have to quit, you have to quit. But for me, and the thing I've tried to instill, particularly in my kids, is that quitting ain't an option. Walking away, that's something different. When you get to the point where you feel like you've done everything that you can do and you can't give it anymore, then you walk away. Because at that point, you can walk away with your head held high saying, I tried. Because listen, there are things that we're going to try that just don't work. And there are things that we're going to try sometimes that don't work for us, or maybe work as fast as we want them to work. The flip side of that is that there are some people who want the instant gratification, and it just doesn't happen that way. Sometimes you have to pay your dues. Sometimes you have to wait on that promotion. Sometimes you have to wait to get that recognition. Sometimes you have to wait to get that salary bump. Sometimes you have to pay your dues. Are you feeling nostalgic for the golden eras of rap and soul music? If so, tune in to the Rap Soul Podcast. We are your weekly journey through the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, spotlighting the music and the hidden gems that shaped the soundtrack of our lives. From the powerful beats to the soulful melodies, we bring you the best of the past with fresh insights and stories. Rediscover the music that defined a generation. Subscribe to the Rap Soul Podcast and enjoy the vibes. If you want a podcast where culture, conversation, and life collide, where you get insightful commentary, engaging discussions, and a fresh perspective on everything, then you need to listen to the 12 Kyle podcast, hosted by the one and only, yours truly, 12 Kyle, a voice that you know and trust. This podcast will bring you thought provoking moments, compelling stories, and a whole lot of fun. Whether you're a first time listener or just tuning in, each episode promises to be something new and exciting. So sit back, relax, join 12 Kyle, myself, and my guests as we break down the world around us and give you stories that you've never heard before, from nostalgic throwbacks to everything in between. The 12 Kyle podcast is a front row seat to this conversation. Subscribe now and never miss an episode of the 12 Kyle podcast, where the vibe is always real and the discussion is always worth your time.
Trying to lose weight? It's time to try Hers. At forhers.com/4u, you can access affordable, doctor-trusted weight loss treatments tailored just for you. These include oral medication kits or compounded GLP-1 injections. Through Hers, pricing for oral medication kits start at just $69 a month for a 10-month plan when paid in full upfront. No hidden fees, no membership fees. You shouldn't have to go out of your way to feel like yourself. Hers brings expert care straight to you with 100% online access to personalized treatment plans that put your goals first. Reach your weight loss goals with help through Hers. Get started at forhers.com/4u to access affordable, doctor-trusted weight loss plans. That's forhers.com/4u, forhers.com/4u. Paid for by Hims and Hers Health. Weight loss by Hers is not available everywhere. Compounded products are not FDA approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. Restrictions at forhers.com apply.
And other times you have to look at the writing on the wall and understand that it ain't coming. And if it's not coming, you might as well bounce. That's walking away. That's not quitting. And the same goes for relationships. I will venture to say that I can think of 5 guys that I know, right? Random people. 5 men that I know that I'm close to. I can honestly say, in their marriages, from what I know, and I will preface my comments by saying that, from what I know, they gave it everything that they could in their marriages. And for whatever reason, either them or their ex-wives, it didn't work, right? But to a man of all 5, they walked away. They didn't quit. Like, they wanted the marriage to work. For whatever reason, it didn't. And I think while that hurts, you can be okay, particularly in the long run, if you can look back and say, well, you know what? I tried. I went to counseling. I bought flowers. I cried. I begged. I slept on couches. I talked to priests. I did I did everything that I could do, right? And if you've done everything that you can do, then what else is there left to do? And I can respect that. I can't respect if their woman said, well, hey, I'm done with you. I'm done with this friendship. I'm done with this marriage. I'm done with this relationship. And not so much as I'm done, but I quit. I quit on you. I quit on this relationship. I quit on this marriage. I quit on this job. I quit on this life that we built together, or that we pledged to build together. I can't respect that. Now, we all get to a point where enough is enough. But if you quit, did you really, really try? And so the lessons that I try to give my kids is try, give it your best. And then if it doesn't work, then you have to kind of look in the mirror and figure out what's next. I was telling my oldest son, Dion, who's 26 at the time of this recording, I was sharing with him a story of, my time at South Carolina State University when I was in college. Now, he's a recent graduate of Alabama A&M University. He has his undergraduate and master's degree. And when I was telling him this story about me being frustrated in my time at South Carolina State University, he was amazed because I don't know that I had ever told him that story. All he's ever heard, at least the way he made it sound, was that all he's ever heard was just great things. And he didn't hear about my frustrating time at South Carolina State, the time where I wasn't playing football. I mean, I was on the team, but I wasn't playing. The time where I broke up with my girl, or the time where I wasn't doing well in this class, or the time where I was frustrated because I didn't think that I wasn't sure if my major was going to work for me. All of those frustrations came to a head when I made the decision, or I was making the decision, that I don't know if this is for me. I don't know if this place is for me. Maybe I need to get away from Orangeburg. Maybe I need to get away from South Carolina State University. Maybe I just need to leave. Maybe I need a new change of scenery. Maybe I don't need to play football here because it's not going to happen, and it's not happening with the speed of which I would like. It didn't happen in the time in which I'd like. So maybe it's just time for me to go. Maybe this just ain't it. Maybe I made a bad decision to come to school here. And I'm telling him this story, and he's amazed at the story because he never heard the story. And I told him, I said, like, look, everything wasn't smooth sailing. I know you hear me and your mom, because, that's where we met. I told him, I said, I know you hear me and your mom speak so highly and so well of our university. I was like, but no, I said, I had some really tough days. I had some really dark days. I said, and you're going to experience the same, whether it be in college or in life. But it's how you handle it, and there's nobody coming to save you. You have to figure it out. But you can't quit, because quitting isn't an option. And so for me, it wasn't about quitting South Carolina State University. About quitting the process. What I had to realize was that, one, quitting was an option. And if I felt like I had enough, did you do enough? That was the other question. And the grades had to get better, but the grades were going to get better if I put in the work. Up until that point, I really hadn't worked as hard as I could have. And the same could be said for the football field. I hadn't worked as hard as I could have. I wanted something to be given to me. I wanted to be on the field, but I didn't want to put in the work that I knew that it would take for me to get on the field. And if it was 2025 as opposed to 1993, then I might have entered the transfer portal. I might have entered the transfer portal and gone to another school and bounced around. But quitting was never an option. It was never an option. I decided to do what I needed to do, and I decided to try harder, and I decided to stick it out. And it worked out. But it worked not by osmosis. It worked for two reasons. One, God, and then two, a belief in myself. And believing that things are going to get better, because they will. And how do you think they're going to get better? Things will get better because if you want them to get better, they will get better. It starts with a mindset, because every situation depends on how you handle it or how you look at it. So that job that's really, really tough, or that boss that's on your back, it's going to get tougher, or it could get easier depending on how you look at it. Now, things are things. And what happens is what happens on a day-to-day at work for you. But it's also on how you handle the things that happen to you at work, or the things that happen to you at school, or the things that happen to you in that relationship. It's how you react and handle it. Because things are going to happen both positively and negatively. But quitting ain't an option. And so my message to everyone in the sound of my voice is that quitting is never an option. Again, there's a difference between quitting and walking away. Walking away means, hey, I've had enough. Quitting means I'm done, and I'm done trying. There's a difference. And I think sometimes people conflate the two. You can be done with that job and have tried the most that you can, and then you decide to walk away. Or you can quit that job. Or you can quit that boyfriend. Or you can quit that girlfriend, knowing full well that you haven't done your best to preserve the relationship or to preserve the marriage. Because it's easy to quit. The harder part is to recognize what it is that you're not doing, fix that, fix yourself, fix your mindset, and then say, hey, I'm going to try. And then after you try, if it doesn't happen, then you can walk away. Now, I am very thankful, extremely thankful that my dad did not allow me to quit football, because quite honestly, had I quit football, I would have quit that day. And there's no guarantees that I would have gone to Wilson High School. There's no guarantees that I would have gone to South Carolina State University. I definitely wouldn't have played football. I may have gone someplace else. And if I don't go to South Carolina State University, maybe I don't meet Sharice. Maybe I meet someone else like Sharice. Who knows? God only knows. But more importantly, I was never allowed to quit. And so subsequently, I have something in me that understands that there's a button that keeps getting pushed. Even when I don't know my way out of the situation, there's something that tells me that you will find a way, or you will create a way for yourself. And I don't see anything wrong with that mindset. In fact, I think that mindset really should be within all of us. Unfortunately, it's not. For some people, it's easy just to push that button and say, hey, I'm done, I'm quit. But quitting really ain't an option, especially nowadays, because here's the reality. Nobody's going to give you anything in life. I tell my kids that all the time. Outside of these four walls, nobody even cares. Yeah, you got your little friends over here. You got your little girlfriend over here. They say they love you and all of that stuff. And that's true. They probably do. Who knows? But outside of these four walls, nobody cares. Nobody cares because you had a bad day. Nobody cares because the company that you work for decided to let you go. You can go lay in the street, kick and scream. Guess what? The world's going to keep spinning because it was spinning before you got here. And it's going to spin the day that they put you in the ground. It doesn't change. It's about the mindset. And so I'm very thankful. I'm thankful that he did not allow me to quit, not because of my love for the game and how far I thought I could go with football, but I developed a mindset to where when things got rough, I did my best and I said, okay, hey, is this enough? Is it enough for me to say, okay, I'm going to walk away? Or is it to the point where it's not going my way and I just say, hey, I quit? You know, same for marriage. I mean, like, it ain't easy. No matter how long I've been married, I will tell you all the time, it's not easy. But you know what? It's not supposed to be easy. If anybody ever tells you that marriage is easy, they are a damn liar. I don't care how great your marriage is or how great your friendship is with that person. And we have a great friendship. We have a great marriage. We have a great relationship. But it's not easy. And I don't know that you ever get to the point where things become easy. They can be easier. But, you know, you gotta work. And you got to be willing to put in the work. And so, like my mom tells me all the time, anything worth having is not going to be easy because it's not supposed to be easy. Things will get harder or more difficult, but you get better at handling the difficulty, the difficult thing, excuse me. And I think that's very important because that teaches us more about ourselves because tough times are going to come. But tough times build tough character. And so, in a nutshell, in conclusion, I'm thankful that I didn't quit because if I quit then, like my dad said, I'd be quitting everything. I would have quit relationships. I would have quit opportunities for myself to grow. I would have quit any and everything. I would have closed doors that weren't even open. And we all have enemies. But the worst enemy that you can have is the enemy that's in your head. Because that enemy in your head will tell you that you can't do anything. And the worst part about it is some of us believe that enemy in our head. But when you're having instilled in you to push yourself, to find a way, more often than not, you normally do. Because that's what winners do. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for me. Thanks again for checking out this edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. We drop new episodes every Sunday and every Thursday. Also, check out the Rap Soul podcast. It's our new baby. It's a music podcast. Listen, it's the best music podcast that you've never heard. On that episode, on that podcast, we talk about music and artists from the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s when it comes to rap, hip hop, soul, and R&B. Again, it's the best music podcast that you've never heard. You can catch the Rap Soul podcast every Monday and every Friday, and you can catch it wherever you're listening or watching this episode in this podcast. Also, if you'd like to contribute to the 12 Kyle podcast financially, hit us up on Cash App. $TWELVEKYLE. Also, we have merch. We have merch. Click the link in the description box where it says merch. There you can buy 12 Kyle Podcast t-shirts, hoodies, as well as coffee mugs. We got it for the low. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for me. Thanks again for checking out this edition of the 12 Kyle Podcast. I am your boy, 12 Kyle. We'll catch you guys next time. 5,000. Cheer!
Thanks again for listening to this episode of the 12 Kyle Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and share this podcast with a friend who needs the 12 Kyle Podcast in their life. Every listen, every download, and every share helps us grow. Thanks for being a part of the 12 Kyle Podcast community. We appreciate your support. We will catch you next time. 5,000.